Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A hearty welcome to this prestigious seminar on the future of finance, organized by Madras Management Association with the support of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung and the CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. It's indeed a privilege that we are organizing such a prestigious seminar on the future of finance. And we commence the session with the inaugural session, and the dignitaries have arrived, and I now invite the dignitaries to take their place on the dais. Mr. Bhaskar Ranjan Das, Associate Director, India, Management Accounting, Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, CIMA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bhaskar Ranjan Das with a round of applause. I also invite Mr. L. Ramkumar, President, Madras Management Association. Mr. Venkatraman, Regional Vice President, APAC, CIMA Association. Mr. Andrew Harding, Chief Executive, Management Accounting, CIMA. And Group Captain Vijay Kumar, Executive Director, Madras Management Association. Can we have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the dignitaries? A very, very warm welcome to Madras Management Association. We are also very proud to share with you that all the major events of MMA are webcast live, liveibc.com/MMA. liveibc.com/MMA, that's the link for the webcast. You could pass on the address to your friends and colleagues who would like to watch the webcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Mr. Bhaskar Ranjan Das, who is the Associate Director, India, Management Accounting, Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning, friends. A very good morning, friends. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here in Chennai at the MMA Auditorium. And thank you so much for being here on a Tuesday morning. The future of finance, as we know, is here, and no one better than our Regional Vice President, Venkatraman, and our Chief Executive Management Accounting, Mr. Andrew Harding, to talk about it. It is my pleasure also to be here at MMA because we are in the process of collaboration. The Madras Management Association is one of Chennai's oldest associations, and we have had a history of having CIMA examinations being conducted here earlier. It's a pleasure to renew our pledge and work together to develop skills and competencies for the finance function, for the management function, in the area of accounting and finance as we go forward. So we look forward to your thoughts and views, your questions, and your areas in terms of what you would like to do going forward. We all know that we have to do something. One of the biggest challenges I face today is thinking, well, what do I learn next? And as we get older in our professions, as we get more senior at our roles and jobs, it's always a challenge now. What learning do I have to keep up with next? So the future is about learning, and the future is also about unlearning a lot of what we have done traditionally. So let's hear it from the experts. Have a very warm, interactive, and enjoyable session today, and look forward to your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now invite Mr. L. Ramkumar, President, Madras Management Association, for the opening remarks.
Respected members in the dais, Mr. Andrew Harding, Mr. Venkatramanan, Mr. Bhaskar, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, distinguished guests, invitees, and members of Madras Management Association. First of all, very good morning to you. It's nice to start something first thing in the morning rather than most of the programs we have in the evening. Everybody is fresh, and I'm sure you're going to benefit by this. As explained, this is a very unique program in terms of talking about the future of finance. This is being organized by us along with the prestigious Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and Conrad Adner Stiftung, who've been supporting us on many of these educational kind of initiatives. We are very highly impressed by the response for this event and also the support of CIMA, which helped us to put together this program in a very, very short time of 4 to 5 days. So that really shows the commitment of both MMA and CIMA to this effort. And I compliment MMA Secretariat, who's been working hard. We had one of the major events yesterday, actually, in the city. And CIMA people who have helped us in putting this together for starting it today. Mr. Andrew Harding, who is on a visit to India, has kindly agreed to be the chief guest this morning and also address the participants in the seminar of Future of Finance. Indeed, we are very privileged to have you, Mr. Harding. I'm sure we'll benefit by your experience, not only in England, but also across the world. I mean, he's just saying he came here from Singapore and last month he was in Bombay, etc. We also have with us Mr. Venkatramanan, Regional Vice President of CIMA APAC, who will also be addressing the participants on technology and automation, which I think is, needless to say, definitely a future of finance, which finance has to contend with. And I'm glad that MMA, which is widely recognized as the fountainhead of managerial excellence, is joining hands, and we would get some of the best brains to join this. For any new initiative we may start, we're also looking at future cooperation with CIMA. It's in very initial stages. We will talk more about it. For those of you who are here for the first time, MMA is the largest management association in the country and has been adjudged the best management association for 10 years in a row, up to 2017-18. We are serving the cause of managerial excellence for over 6 decades. We have over 7,000 corporate houses, industries, professionals, academics, executives as members. We organize around 650 executive development programs, including seminars for top management, with a total participant strength of around 40 to 45,000 every year. I also hope this partnership between MMA and CIMA would strengthen our participation and involvement in spreading the message of management across this part of the country. Coming to the future of finance, I thought I would leave a few of my thoughts here. Having started my career in the finance function, I have done my MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and also I'm an associate of the Institute of Cost and Works Accountant. And I've been heading businesses for the last maybe 20-25 years. Before that, my grounding was all in finance. And I always thought the finance people always have a need to change because I'll tell you, we today talk about Industry 4.0, right? So everything needs to keep pace with Industry 4.0. So I thought, what happened to finance? Now, how did it evolve? So it's in a process of evolution, and I think finance function is used to this evolution much more than many other functions. You know, maybe the other function which is used to it is manufacturing and all. They find it difficult because you have to abandon technologies and get into totally something new. So I think very early, which was maybe the Industry 1.0, it was just accounting. I think it is accounting, it is control, and many times the end result or end objective of many people, maybe 30, 40 years back, was closing of accounts. We have done closing of accounts, let's celebrate. Today, I don't think anybody talks about it because accounts gets closed every day. Then came, I think, mass manufacturing, competition and stuff like that. So we got into more of looking at cost. We started looking at how competitive are we financially rather than just saying what is the actual situation in terms of a post-mortem kind of a situation. Then came the speed with which you need to have data online, real time, and you can't afford to have a monthly closing, quarterly closing, annual closing, stuff like that. So we got into a lot of computerization. So I think if you really ask, I think that's, I suppose, is Industry 3.0. The lead in computerization, any company would have been taken by the finance guys. And then follow all the rest, because now maybe there is a level playing field across, but the drudgery of converting a manual into a computerized thing, etc. Lots and lots, I think, have been done by finance professionals across. So I think the situation has come now. Nobody is asking the question whether data is correct. Otherwise, we've had meetings maybe 15, 20 years back, when each one will have a different data on, for example, inventory. So there'll be a fight. Somebody says your data is wrong. Somebody says it's high. Somebody says it's low. I think these things don't happen now because everybody just gets the data. It's a question of how well you can use the data. And I think as we go forward, one of the important things which is happening is with the AI and analytics and stuff like that, you have to look at data very differently. Now, having been in this and also headed businesses, one of the things one has done a million times is projection of financial P&L and balance sheet. Now, how do we project? You take a 5% growth, 7% growth, all those kind of things. But I think today you can do it segment-wise, sector-wise, in a more intelligent way. And I think in one sense, there is more opportunity for the finance guys. And in a way, there is more responsibility also for the finance guys. You can't do a linear, it just happens like this kind of a thing. You need to be, in a way, actually intelligent in using the artificial intelligence bit. That's on the one side. Now, there is a lot of things happening externally, which is also being covered in the seminar today, which is to do with the regulations, the SEBI, the stock exchange, etc. Here also financial professionals and also a lot of accounting standards, international, Indian accounting standards, GAAP, etc. So I think this is another thing which one has to keep pace. On top of this, we also have a very important role for most of the companies which are listed as to what is the value of the company. So there is a stock exchange and there are regulations of stock exchange. There are a lot of things to be done in order to create value. Many people who are very good in business, especially maybe the sales or manufacturing or technology guys, may not know what is value. So it's the finance guys who play a very important role in terms of hand-holding to say do more of this and do less of this, and hence your stock price will go up, and hence also keep up the relationship with the stock market in order to give them a kind of comfort that the company is transparent in saying what is going on. So I think in a particular way, the finance professionals are being placed in a way that they need to be doing a 360-degree kind of a job, not doing one in a particular direction. And one has to figure out how to do this in a very effective and a very easy way, not feel the burden of the whole thing. I'm sure the distinguished speakers this morning are going to tell their experiences and tell all of us as to how they have handled it. And I'm sure we're going to be much better off with this. So once again, I thank all the people, distinguished speakers who are yet to come, some of them are here, for being here. I thank you for coming here to attend this morning. I wish you good luck and wish you a very enriching seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Venkatramanan is currently the Regional Vice President for Asia Pacific for CIMA. He is responsible for managing and driving the strategy, growth, and development of CIMA in the Asia Pacific region. This includes Southeast Asia, India, and the MESANA countries. Mr. Venkat works with policymakers, government bodies, regulators, employers, and universities to lead and support management, accounting advocacy, and intimate projects that are of strategic significance to CIMA. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite Mr. Venkatramanan to deliver the special address on technology and automation. How will it impact us?
Right, Vanakkam, and thank you for having us, Mr. Ramkumar and Captain Vijay Kumar and Madras Management Association for hosting us. It's always a pleasure to come back to Chennai in my capacity. This is the third time I'm back here. Just to give you a preview, I used to come here every year and spend 1 month in Chennai because my grandfather is from this plant. But ever since I've taken over the responsibility and moved to Malaysia, I seldom visit, so it's always good to be back, and we'll wait for more invitations across. The time period in which we live and the kind of changes that are taking place are far too rapid. In the US, it's impacting various sectors in terms of technology and automation, and the most important, one of the sectors that got impacted the first was truck drivers. And truck drivers typically spend anything between 200 to 220 days transporting goods from one part of the state to another part of the state. Their median income was anywhere around $54,000 to $84,000, and they'll spend most of their time in motels and diners. Now, if we have watched crime scene investigation, we'll find a lot of truck driver-related crimes in motels and in diners. In 2015, automation and the way technology affected them was through autonomous trucks that did not require a human being to drive. In the US, there's typically 3 million truck drivers at the moment. Think about that for a second. And think about the direct and the indirect consequences of technology, and in this case, autonomous trucks replacing humans. What would it do? What would it do to the industry of motels, where a majority of their customers were the truck drivers, the diners? Why? Look at even medical services. A lot of the incidents around the roads happen because of human errors and accidents because of that, what it would do and how they have to shift resources around medical services. So there's a lot of direct and indirect consequences taking place. There's an interesting book on the future of mankind by Yuval Noah Harari. It's called Homo Deus. Just take a read of it. And in that book, he's challenging perceptions and the way technology is going to move us. He's of the view that mankind can live up to 250 years. Now take that for an example and see what impact it would do specifically on few things, including marriage laws. Now I know my wife loves me and I love her, but I don't think she wants to be married to me more than 50 years. What does it mean for careers? What does it mean for the word retirement? When do you retire? What does it mean when it comes to hitting boredom and moving away? And he also in the same book predicts that people will die faster, although they can live up to, because they get bored. They will do extreme things. So technology and automation is going to hit us in a manner that we need to understand. I'll leave that part to Andrew to talk about the specific impact. Andrew is leading for the association an important goal in terms of setting the future of finance, and part of the association in terms of the future of finance is to keep our members relevant and dynamic. And think about that for an example, if you take what's happening with truck drivers and how it'll impact that. And I'll leave that for Andrew. We still can't figure this out, by the way. Part of change in technology and the fear that it causes human beings, it leads to two kind of specific fears. Either the fear of being left out or the fear of being left behind. Now, in my age and the way I interact with people, I love to interact with different generations of people. When I speak to youngsters, I want to be able to relate to them. So when I do any presentations or go and speak to a younger generation and leave, they will always end up asking me, which social media platform are you? And I say Facebook, and they'll walk away. And I say, what am I missing? I'm from a Facebook generation. Then I asked them, aren't you on Facebook? Yes, they said we were till our parents joined. I said, that's a problem. Then I asked them which kind of technologies or which kind of social platforms are you all adapting to? They said Instagram. It took me a hell of a lot of time to understand what Instagram was all about. Because in Facebook, we're used to posting photographs and videos and commenting, and we are looking at those comments and understanding the changes that are taking place. But Instagram, all you see is photographs of food, places, and people. And as those social media focus changes, I also realized that I have to keep up with those things if I'm to relate to a different generation. And as the generation moves on, I have a 6-year-old daughter. It scares the living daylights out of me whether I can continuously and consistently relate to her. Think about that. Now translate that to a working profession. If we don't make significant, impactful changes in the way we do we have a fear of being left out and left behind? Last year, my wife and I started talking about education for my 6-year-old. My wife is a firm believer of the public school systems in Malaysia. And if you've been to a public school system in Malaysia, you'll understand what kind of people they mold. It's very competitive. When you're 6 and 7, you're carrying your books back to home and you're doing homework till about, for good 1 to 2 hours. And then we came across and we spoke to a few people, and including these research, we said, no, we don't want that. We want to be able to mold and build our daughter to be able to face whatever consequences or challenges that is thrown out, not just from an academic point of view, but a personality point of view. And this statistics from World Economic Forum also is a reminder to us that's exactly what's happening. People are entering university programs right now. By the time they come out, there might not be a job that existed 4 years ago. What are you going to do about that? Our children who are going through, your grandchildren or your children or your nephews or nieces, they're going through education process, jobs will not exist. There'll be a new caliber of jobs that are required. How are we to shift on that? According to McKinsey's global study, by 2030, 375 million people need to either upskill themselves or learn new skills. The misconception of technology that replaces jobs is only effective as long as you allow it to. 375 million people. The population of India, what is it now, 1.3 billion. You take 375, it's a 1 billion. Can you just imagine on a what's the working population of India? Should be about at least 500 million? Easily. And that's where we are coming to saying, while technology exists, it would not necessarily replace human beings. It's just that we have to be able to replace our skills. Another study by McKinsey highlighted the way in which technology will change certain functions, how it will replace certain roles. Look at the predictable physical work. Out of 10, if you're here doing predictable physical work, 8 of you all will lose your jobs. And as management accountants, if we use applying expertise, 2 out of 10 of us will lose our jobs. I'm going to put these challenging statements because it's about what we need to do about that. And look at the things that automation cannot easily replace or take over. Managing others, empathy, human intelligence. I have my team. They're brilliant. I sit and watch them at times in terms of how they manage relationships, how they're able to go and talk to people, how they get a gut when they walk and see someone that something is wrong with that relationship and what they do about it. I have many colleagues who do the same here. I have one colleague in my region who she goes and sees a person and understands there's a relationship issue. She goes and addresses it. She can see it, she can sense it. She puts a hand on his shoulder and says, "Can I talk to you for 5 minutes?" And after that 5 minutes, the person comes out, no issues. There are specific drivers of change that are taking place, and this will allude to later when Andrew talks about the future of finance. And this is something that we need to keep in mind because it impacts us and impacts the way we live. I'm not going to talk about globalization at all. Each one of you can write a book about globalization because that's part of our learning and that's part of our working environment. Geopolitics is important. I don't know about Chennai in India, but geopolitics is now characterized over 140 character tweet. When President Donald Trump gets up in the morning and decides he's going to impose some trade sanctions somewhere in the world, he's going to do it. And each government needs to wake up and realize how they're going to respond to it. Trade policies were not conducted over 140 characters. Trade policies were easily, properly governed, go through the governance process of approvals, pass through parliaments, senates, and different structures before informed and communicated to the public, and after varied consultations. Now, what happens? How do you respond? How do governments respond? How do policymakers respond? Consumer empowerment. My colleague Geetu is from Dubai. When I landed in Dubai on work the first time and decided to take an Uber instead of a taxi to go to the office, I picked Uber X, the basic Uber available. And I got a Lexus car. And I canceled it thinking, oh my God, what am I going to pay for this? How can I claim it? Because where I come from, when you order Uber X, it's a small little vehicle that comes to pick you up. Then I realized in Dubai, Uber X is a basic Lexus. Then I decided to be cheeky, what other types of vehicles are in existence? So I moved the swivel a bit. Then there was something called Uber Lux. And I said, what in the world is Uber Lux? Uber Luxury, which is a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, by the way. And I was wondering, where am I going to put my suitcase? And he decided to go even further. There's something called Uber Chopper. It's actually a helicopter. Uber car will pick you up, take you there, you go up to the rooftop, and it'll transport you where you want. Consumers have far greater empowerment now than ever. And technologies like artificial intelligence enable us to have that. Demographies. I live in Malaysia, which has a population of 26 million. Mumbai's current population is about 25 million. And by 2030, it'll go up to 30 million. Just imagine that, one country into one city. How do governments respond to that? For security, safety, health, well-being, even things like how do we provide for drainage? They have to seek technology to support that process. Otherwise, they won't be able to facilitate and support it. Let me go on to specifics of technology. The first impact is automation. Detroit, and this is a little pun that we use all the time. Can you spot the supervisor? The supervisor is the guy who's not looking at the people and has his hands behind. Spotted? Good. This is Detroit now. Think about that. There are two human beings who are walking around, couldn't see them, spot them, but they're just looking through the process to ensure that everything is working perfectly well. Stock exchange, or the trading flow. Trading flow now. On the left is, in Pittsburgh, there's a burger place that makes burgers, obviously. They've used robots to make the burger now. Why? They didn't replace with human beings, by the way. There were not enough human beings who wanted to do the job in the first place. They said, no, we'll create a robot to do it. Best part, no medical leave, no trade union action, 24-hour burger operation, and believe it or not, the quality of the burger, as it makes, it using artificial intelligence as well, is improving. Can you get a gauge of what's on the bottom right-hand corner for y'all? What's so specific about it? And that's Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama. There he's inspecting. Do you know what that is? It's a Shelby Cobra. You know what's specific about the Shelby Cobra? 3D printed car. He had to touch it, to see it, to believe it. Now, why is it important to us, and if you're in management or finance professionals, and this will link up to what Andrew is going to present later on, what about technology that we need to be aware of? Now, when I was a single man, my life was very, very certain in the way I did things. I had an agreement about myself, and there's a high level of certainty. We don't like uncertainty as human beings, do we? We don't crave for uncertainty. We don't wake up and say, I want uncertainty today. We want a lot of certainty. So I had an agreement with myself. I go to the gym 3 times a week. I'll be with my friends and my parents, and I'll eat with my parents certain days, and I'll go out, take my mother out for shopping if need be. I'll have different sets of friends to meet them at different dates, not mix them both together. There might be issues. And it was beautiful. And I got married. There's a certain level of chaotic process that happened. My wardrobe space changed. I didn't find a place to put my shoes. My toothbrush was shifted across to another place. And we were trying to figure out who's going to do the dishes and the laundry. And then as human beings, we try to bring that process from uncertainty, chaotic world to a certainty world with a lot of agreement. Because that's who we are. And then we came to an agreement. Laundry will be done on these days, which are odd days in the calendar. Then we'll go out, visit your parents on a Saturday. My parents will Skype with them on a Sunday. Then we'll meet these people, and it became well. Till I had a daughter. And we haven't ever moved to a certainty or an agreement. It's still a chaotic place that we live in. Now translate that to their working environment. Where are chief executives now? Do they want certainty and agreement in the way they work with? The environment is very what? Complex. It's very ambiguous, very uncertain. And in that environment, what do we as professionals do all the time? We try to bring them to certainty. Policies, structures, procedures. Audit is the best part. We call it audit and put them into certain boxes. And they say, no, leave our hands loose. We won't be able to drive. Because otherwise, we are not able to exist in the future, because it's about sustaining a business and being relevant as well. Where we need technology to support us to exist in that very blue complex zone. And if we use technology to bring us to the certainty agreement zone, we fail. If we use technology to exist in the chaotic zone, we struggle. Final points. There are activities that are always going to be machine only. They're very transactional. They iterate, they have many iteration procedures. They can predict to a great extent, and through that, they're capable of adapting. These are machine only, not human only. And human only activities, we're brilliant at leadership. Imagine a robot standing in front of you and trying to move your working cadre to motivate them on a Monday morning. Would it happen? No. Do you think it can happen? No. Empathize. My wife will tell you, if there was any technology when I walk back from work, she can assess the kind of stress levels I have, she would love it. And so would I. But empathizing or having the ability to be empathetic comes from a conscious nature, comes from here. And an understanding and a mindfulness as to what impact it could be. And human beings are brilliant at creating things. That's where our drive is. And we use our judgment in terms of making decisions. Technology and automation, not to that extent. And in a way, if machines and humans are to coexist, we've got to be able to exist in that very hybrid world. So as humans, how do we complement machines? We are capable of training them on specific tasks. We are able to explain the outcomes of whatever we get. And we are able to focus on a process of sustaining things. Where technology is capable of supporting, and especially artificial intelligence, is in terms of supporting human performance, is the ability to amplify, interact, and embody. Embody is critical, by the way. Remember that burger example I showed? Embodiment is how artificial intelligence can take a specific robotic feature and do multiple tasks, because robots only can do one performing task. So now in that specific restaurant, what they're looking at is that burger flips, the robot flips the burger, can it make a spaghetti at the same time? And it can, because the AI process allows that embodiment to take place. Final thoughts. We have to embrace it. We have to live with it. And we have to drive it. Technology is there in our world, and it is us to adapt to it. And there are some of us who are skeptical, saying, no, my role is going to be there, and Andrew is going to share some perspectives of that as well. Let's be those human creators. Rather than watching change take place, let's be part of that change and drive the change.
Thank you, sir, for that very enlightening and insightful address. Ladies and gentlemen, we have pleasure in announcing that MMA and CIMA are chartering a new journey of collaboration today in empowering the management professionals through joint certificate courses and other programs. To mark this joint endeavor, may I request the dignitaries, Mr. Venkat Ramanan and Group Captain Vijay Kumar, Executive Director, Madras Management Association, to sign the letter of intent. I also request Mr. L. Ram Kumar and Mr. Andrew Hardings to sign the letter of intent. I request Mr. Andrews and Mr. Ram Kumar to exchange the letter of intent. To mark the new journey of collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause as MMA and CIMA charter the new journey of collaboration and certificate programs. Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrew Harding is the Chief Executive, Management Accounting of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Mr. Andrew is a Chartered Global Management Accountant, a Chartered Accountant, and holds an MBA from Henley Business School. Prior to joining CIMA in 2009, Mr. Andrew worked for 17 years in professional body education, regulation, and management. I now invite Mr. Andrew Harding to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much indeed. President, Executive Director, thank you for inviting us here this morning. It's a great pleasure to be here to talk to you. I think by way of introduction, I should really start to tell you a little bit about our organisation, what we're doing, because you've heard talk of CIMA, you've heard talk of the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. What on earth are these things? Are they one and the same? And what on earth am I? So, the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants was created on the 1st of January 2017 by CIMA and the American Institute of CPAs. We became one organisation from the point of view of our strategy, our people, and our assets. Association of International Certified Professional Accountants is a little bit of a mouthful. I'm sure you'll agree, even I can't get it right. I have to practice it over and over again. So we call it quite simply AICPA and CIMA. And we believe that is the bringing together of two of the world's most reputable professional bodies from the public accounting space and the management accounting space. Currently, we represent 667,000 members and students across the world. We have 41 offices across the world, 184 countries our members are living in. We have 31 qualifications, designations, diplomas, certificates. The prime ones of those are the CIMA CGMA and the American CPA qualification. And our members work for over 150,000 organizations across the world. So that is what we are. Why did this all happen? How did it all happen? Well, it happened, really, it was driven by the global financial crisis. In 2009, 2010, we'd just come out of the global financial crisis, so we thought. Some people will tell you we're still in it. But there were things that were coming through to us. At CIMA, we were hearing from corporates across the world. We spent 10 years investing in IFRS, investing in financial reporting, and look where it's got us. We need to start reinvesting in good risk management, good management accounting, and relearning how to manage our businesses properly. At the same time, we had a call from across the Atlantic, from New York, from the American Institute of CPAs. And they said, we've just come through the global financial crisis. When we look at it, we see our businesses needing to build management accounting capability, manage their risks better, etc., etc. They said, we have a responsibility to do that in the United States. We need to partner. We don't have a good enough partner locally. Would you partner with us? And of course, we said, yeah, that's fantastic, because it had taken CIMA 90 years to get to having about 900 members in the US. We wanted to be global. We believe management accounting is a genuinely global profession. And in this world, in this day and age, you can't be global unless you have representation, and solid representation, in the United States. So that was what drove us to create what we did, and drove us to create what we have today. I became CIMA's chief executive in the summer of 2016, and on the 1st of January 2017, I became the shortest serving ever chief executive of CIMA, and the last chief executive of CIMA, and I became the first chief executive of management accounting for our new association. So that in a nutshell is what this is all about. And when you hear talk of our new association, when you hear talk of the American Institute of CPAs, when you hear talk of CIMA, that's how we all work and how we all interact. Essentially we are about the accounting profession. And I'm going to talk specifically about management accounting here today. What we're all about is using management accounting to drive better business and to drive better careers. Now, some of you may have noticed me fiddling with my phone and thought, oh God, he's bored, he's messaging his friends. What I wanted to do was to pull out something for you, which I was sent this morning by a company called Kaplan. I don't know how many of you have heard of Kaplan. In the West, they're probably the largest educating body. They own everything from universities down to nurseries, and somewhere along the line they also own the Washington Post. So I suspect they're not very good friends of Donald Trump. But Kaplan work with us very closely across the world, and they've produced something this morning, a sort of infographic going out. Again, you probably can't see that, but it's a very nice infographic. Follow me on LinkedIn and you can see it. And they talk about earning potential for accountants. And they talk about starting earnings for newly qualified accountants across management accounting, forensic accounting, and chartered accountants. And this is a UK number. So for management accountants, they talk about £64,000 a year. Forensic accountants, they talk about £40,200 a year. And for chartered accountants, they talk about £56,000 a year. They then put that going up for management accountants over 5 years up to £129,000 a year. Forensic accountants up to £68,000 a year, and chartered accountants up to £90,200 a year. That says something very powerful to me. It tells me that business still is hiring those talents that they wanted in 2010. They're still valuing those, and they're continuing to value those. And in particular, that management accountants are adding value to business. Because if they weren't, they wouldn't be recruited, they wouldn't be retained in the business. And that is really what it's all about. Those numbers are really powerful. They don't tell us any lies, I don't think. That is the way we're seeing business moving. And the way that we're seeing careers moving. The other reflection I have back from that global financial crisis time is the way graduates coming into the profession were talking to us. Prior to the global financial crisis, they were saying, I'm going to be an accountant, I'm going to lead an IPO, and I want to be a multimillionaire by the time I'm 30. In 2010, they were saying, I want to work for a good company where my contribution is valued, where I have respect from my friends and my colleagues. Very, very different mindset as we move on. And some of that is generational, and Venkat talked a little bit about generations. He also talked about how's a robot going to motivate you at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. We've done some research on generations. The really scary thing about it is Generation Z, our current sort of 19, 20-year-olds, they tell us they would rather be managed by a robot than a person. They believe the robot would be more consistent, would be fairer. That says an awful lot about their parents and an awful lot about their teachers. And I think it says an awful lot about how they like to have some fun with questionnaires and to tease organisations like us who are asking questions which they probably think are rather stupid. Venkat has talked about how technology is impacting the finance function. And it is doing that like never before. And we talk about all these changes, we talk about these things that are different, things that are new, but some of it is very, very familiar to us. Cognitive computing. Whenever you say, OK, Google to your phone, you're using cognitive computing. We all play with it. In-memory computing. Wow, what's in-memory computing? In-memory computing is simply a very big random access memory, the kind of thing we talked about in 1990 when we first had our desktops. It's not new, it's just bigger. Advanced analytics. What are advanced analytics? Well, in February I was sitting down for lunch in Mumbai with the CFO of a bank, and he gave me a piece of paper. And I said, what's this? I said, it looks like my first year of A-level statistics syllabus. And he said, no, he says, I want you to give this back to your research director. Because I met him last year and I told him I'd give him a list of the analytics techniques we use. I said, but these are the same as I learned in 1977. He said, yeah, it's all the same. The only difference is now you don't have to do the maths yourself. You've got computer programs that will do it for you. You don't have to chart dots onto a piece of graph paper and draw a line, because there are too many dots to do that with. You can use millions of pieces of data and your computer will generate the solution for you. So simply, all it is what we had before, but it's bigger, it's faster, and it's better. And so many of the changes we're going through are those. There is the one I want to draw your attention to. That is process robotics. And that is the thing which fundamentally changes a lot of jobs in the accounting profession. It is the thing which will do and finish the dominance of spreadsheets. There are thousands and thousands of accounting jobs across the world, in particular in banks, which involve moving data from one system to another using a spreadsheet. Those are called swivel chair jobs, and they can be automated. Many of the accountants who do those jobs have been doing them for many, many years. Do they add any value doing that? Probably not. A lot of them I speak to tell me how boring their jobs are. I don't like feeling like a robot. Well, the good news for them is you won't do, because a robot will do your job for you. We have a big need to change. When we look at this technology, the good news for those people who are doing those swivel chair jobs is you can see on that chart of adoption, process robotics is still in its early stage. Probably a much earlier stage than any of us thought it would be, but maybe not. Generally, when it comes to technological adoption, it is slower over the first 2 years than anyone expects it to be, and over 5 to 10 years, it is much faster than anyone expects it to be. So, for people who are sitting there comfortably saying, oh, it's not going to change after all, is it? Well, the bad news is it's probably going to come at you at about 100 miles an hour, and it will change very, very quickly indeed. So those are the sorts of things that are going to be impacting us. When we talk to our members about this, 75% of them believe this change is good. They believe it drives opportunity for them. Why does it do that? Well, if you're a finance professional, one of the things you do, and you do routinely, is you manage the costs of the business down. And one of the things you have to do is lead by example. And I don't know a single finance professional who does not have an objective to reduce the cost of finance as a percentage of the business's costs year on year. This gives them a great opportunity to do that. But as well as doing that, it gives them a chance to demonstrably make finance a better, more valuable function within the business. That is really, really attractive. And it doesn't necessarily mean elimination of people numbers, but it does mean change, it does mean new skills. So the kind of things that we've seen, Venkat talked to you about the McKinsey report, jobs that they say are easily automated. Looking at this specifically for the finance function. Looking here, we're going left to right. Now, 10 years ago when I first joined CIMA, we produced a report from with Accenture, and it talked about the future of finance being business partnering. I don't know how many of you have business partnering roles in your organizations. Put your hands up if you do. One person out of 120, that's quite shocking. Uptake in the UK was higher than that 10 years ago, and we'd now see it probably in about 95% of organizations. It is changing. Finance is moving from the back office to the front line of the business. Finance professionals are no longer the scorekeepers. Finance professionals are working side by side with managers to drive better decision making, to make the businesses they work for more efficient, not just day by day, but sometimes minute by minute. We do a lot of business in South Africa, and we have a company we work with there called Impala Platinum. And the mining industry is really interesting. You know, medium-term planning in the mining industry is 20 years. That's your planning horizon, compared to the IT industry where the planning horizon is 2 months. But, and this is really interesting, Impala Platinum run one shaft. They drill that and that will last them 20 years or 30 years. At the top of that shaft, permanently there all day, sometimes at the bottom of the shaft, they have a management accountant with his or her laptop, and they monitor activity in that mine shaft minute by minute. Why do they do that? Because they're producing a commodity. They can't control the price, but they can control the cost. And it's really important for them that they keep that cost down. Where we are at the moment, they can keep that cost down minute by minute, and they can monitor it minute by minute. And that makes that organisation the lowest cost producer of platinum in the world, and as a consequence, they obviously immediately become the most profitable platinum producer in the world. So that's the sort of thing, how you can see finance moving out of the back office into the business. And that's probably the most extreme example we've got. We've got some great photos of one of these accountants down the mine shaft with his laptop and a light, and some of the miners going past him with these huge handheld drills. But think about automation. Think about the roles that change. Think about what adds value. Quite simply, if you do something that's boring, it's boring because it's repetitive. If it's repetitive, it can probably be automated. So things like the collection and processing of our basic data, that can probably be automated. Many businesses moved that to shared service centres to bring costs down. Now their shared service centres are automating to bring their costs down, and to ensure that they keep that business and ensure that the companies who gave them that business in the first place don't automate it themselves and repatriate. Where we go, though, from there, we start to see where differences come, and we start to see where we can make a difference, and that is around how we influence and the impact that we create. It's about how we add value. It's about the work that finance professionals regard as rewarding, regard as exciting, regard as adding value. It's where they feel valued by the business. And that is that continued move from left to right as jobs change. Now, I have a good case study here for you. And I would say this is probably one of the world's most well-known companies. I can't tell you the name, but by the end of today, I'm pretty sure that every one of you will have used their products. This company had, at one of its board meetings, what I would call a typical argument. And it was an argument about numbers between finance and sales. Sales said the numbers were up here, finance said they were down here. Everyone knew the reality was they were probably somewhere in between. But their chief executive, who was very outgoing, very noisy, very, very energetic, suddenly went quiet in this meeting, and they argued for about 20 minutes, and he went quieter and quieter, and suddenly they realized he'd gone very quiet, and they realized something bad was going to happen, and he exploded, and he threw finance out of the meeting, he threw sales out of the meeting, and he told them to go away for 6 months, sort this problem out, come back with one single source of truth, and never to waste time in a board meeting arguing about the numbers again, because they need to make decisions based on the numbers. The board is not required to judge between one producer of numbers and another. So they went away, and they did work for 6 months on that. And they produced new processes, and they built confidence around it. They produced an automated process for their forecasting. And they ran the two in parallel, because nobody would believe an automated process could be better than the old process. The results of which was, you can see those there for a series of 3 quarters. The old system had variations of 3.5%, 3.3%, 1.2%. The automated process variances of 0.5%, 3.3%, and 0.8%. Overall in that period, the automated process was significantly more accurate than the old process. The other consequence of that, the old process took 800 people a month to produce. 20 working days in a month, 16,000 working days to produce the old reforecast. The new reforecast, 2 people, 2 days. What do you think they chose to do going forward? 2 people, 2 days. I first heard this story from the controller of this business, and he was telling me how this had changed his job. So the first thing is, he said, I no longer have finance in my job title. He said, the second thing is, he said, I'm appraised on impact. I used to be appraised on how good the forecasts were and how quickly they were produced. Now I'm appraised on the impact I personally have on the business. He said it was terrible. He said I was so frightened. He said I felt like a salesperson. I felt accountable every month, do or die. He said now though, now I really enjoy it. He said my job is more rewarding than ever before. I'm welcomed into meetings. I'm required at meetings because I'm an essential part of the team and I make things happen. I'm no longer the guy who says no. I'm the guy who tells them how. I said to him, what about the 798 other people? What happened to them? He said, well, they're no longer called finance either. They're all assessed on the impact, and they sit alongside managers, and they work as business partners. I said, so no one left? He said, well, net numbers are the same. He said, of course some people left. Some people just didn't want to make the change. But this is how finance moved from the back office to the front office, taking advantage of automation, adding value to the business, and creating better careers for those professionals. I think it's a great story and an example of what can be done and what can be achieved. We do, though, see the finance function changing. If you look on here, right up at the top, you'll see the traditional pyramid of the finance function. That's starting to move, that's starting to shift. And it started to shift 15, 20 years ago with the advent of shared service centres. Some of the big companies headquartered in London were saying to us 10 years ago, where are our future finance managers going to come from? We no longer have that huge group of people along the bottom because they're all they've been out, they're working in outsourcing businesses. We no longer have that traditional pyramid to build our future leaders from. And that they were correct. Today, though, it's become even more profound because automation has taken a second slice out of there. So your pyramid is now far more of a hexagonal shape with a very, very narrow bottom of people doing basic processing. It broadens towards the middle. Where you see that maximum breadth, that is roughly the place where newly qualified accountants work. So the good news for newly qualified accountants is, hey, the jobs are still there. But how do you get to that level? That's a challenge for us as a professional body. That means our qualifications change. We were talking earlier when we arrived how MMA used to be the CIMA exam centre here until 2015 when we put exams onto computer. We also at that point moved to make exams very much case study based. Very much about, rather than tests of knowledge, tests of how you apply that knowledge, how you use that knowledge. In effect, moving to simulations. And when we started that move, the most common people we talked to were the military and the medical profession. And we talked to them because they're both using simulations, and they're using them for two reasons. Because if they're junior people at the bottom of that pyramid get things wrong, people die. Yeah? So they do simulated operations. They fire simulated missiles. They don't use expensive kit. They don't risk lives. We're able to take advantage of that, see how they do those things, use those things, and bring them into our examinations. So we get something where we're actually testing people in a simulated environment very close to the work environment. They're not going to smash your business apart because it's all done on computer. But they start to learn about that. We start to be able to put them in front of a laptop or in front of a screen for 3 hours, and they have problems presented to them. When we first did this, we had the chairman of our American Partners Business and Industry Committee, CFO of a company. He has operations in the US and in Singapore. And he phoned me up. He must have been probably in his late 50s. And he said, I'm really interested in this, but I don't get how it works. He said, would you let me have a go? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, but one condition from me. He said, that is, if I fail the exam, you won't strip me of my qualification. I said, no, that's fine, don't worry. You've got your qualification, you keep that. I said, if you're going to have a condition, no, I want a condition. And my condition is that you give me some feedback and you tell me what you thought of it. And you give me some very honest feedback. I said, and also you make it short so I can understand it. And anyway, he went through it and he passed. I can't remember his pass rate, but that's really not the point. And he then called me up. I said, okay, how was it? And he said, it wasn't what I was expecting. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to ask you what you were expecting, but tell me what it was like. He said, it was actually like a very, very busy day in the office. And for me, I thought in one sentence, he told me we got it right. Because that is what we're trying to achieve at the top strategic levels of our examination, is a test of an individual's ability to deal with the sort of situations they're going to find in the workplace, using the knowledge and the skills that they've learned as a management accountant. But it's not about having that knowledge. It's not about saying they've got those skills. It's about being able to demonstrate that they can use them. And that's really what we're all about. That's what professional qualifications are all about. That's what the professions are all about. We're not learned professors. We're people who do, we're people who add value. And that's what we aim to test. So that is our world. And I think quite simply, what I will often say is the world of the accountant has changed. We're no longer the scorekeeper, but what we are the storyteller. And in telling that story, we have to be able to influence, we have to be able to create the impact which enables managers, boardrooms, other business leaders to take the right decisions for their businesses. So think about that. Think about the accountant as the storyteller. This isn't about creative accounting. That story has to be objective. It has to have integrity. But it needs to be a story. And the great thing about stories is, throughout all time, stories have been used to influence behavior, to drive behavior, and drive solutions. And we need to really be in touch with that and recognize that. You know, I say to my own finance people, if you're going to present me with a report with a list of numbers which go budget, actual, variance, I said, to be honest with you, you might as well go home. I want you to tell me a story about the business, how it's performing today, and how it can perform tomorrow, with some good ideas as to which levers I need to pull to make it fulfill that promise of tomorrow. That's what we need to be doing for finance. That's our world. When we've gone through all of this work, we believe we've genuinely covered the globe and covered global business. We went out to over 5,500 finance professionals from over 2,000 organisations in more than 150 countries. That's genuinely across the whole globe, through individual interviews, through roundtable discussions, through questionnaires. And, you know, management accounting is a genuinely global profession. We use similar techniques wherever we are. We don't worry too much about which territory we're working in. That's for the chartered accountants to worry about. They can deal with the tax. They can deal with the external reporting requirements. We're about business performance. We're about managing risk. We're about creating value. Probably the most important thing that came through this, though, was for individuals, how mindsets need to change, how we need to change our thinking, how we need to change the way in which we work. And for me, one of the most profound things that came out of this is that the accounting professional bodies have long made promises to their students and to their new members, and those promises have been broken. Those promises quite simply said, if you do a stack of learning in your 20s and pass our exams, that will serve you for the next 40 years. And that remained pretty true, and we were still making that promise through the 1980s, through the 1990s. The day I qualified, my manager took me for lunch. And he said, "Andrew, isn't it great? You'll never have to learn anything again." I thought, God, that's terrible. I'm so bored doing this job. The only thing I used to enjoy was going away with a few friends, doing some studying, and even the exam wasn't too bad compared to a day in the office. But that notion that you never have to do anything again is gone. We constantly need to replace our knowledge with new knowledge. I can't think of anything that I learned during my training beyond the ability to manage people, the ability to get things done, the objectivity, and the fact that debits are beside the window and credits are also beside the window. Those things are constant. Everything else has changed. All the accounting standards I learned, all gone. All the tax I learned, all gone. All the company law I learned, all gone. Should I ever have learned it? Well, the answer was yes. In those days, you needed to have that knowledge here. Today, you don't. You can get knowledge very, very quickly. You don't need to go to a library. You can get it on your phone. You can get it from an Alexa bot. Far better, the knowledge that you have and the skills that you have are about adding value to your business. So we're in this world now where, going to the right-hand side, we need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And we need to have that capability. My prediction for professional qualifications is that in 10 years' time, you will no longer see that huge spike in learning at the beginning of the career, followed by nothing. You'll see quite a lot to be learned at the start, but after that, you'll see a sort of rolling motion over the career of relearning everything else. And the lucky people will be the people who can forget some of the early stuff that they used to know. Other things that we need to have that questioning mindset. If we don't have that questioning mindset, we can't tell an interesting story. We can't look at how the story might end. Every company story can have different endings depending on the decisions made. We need to understand what those are. We also need to be able to act quickly and react to change. And that's going to cause some profound shake-ups to the system. We're about to do what I think will be our last ever 4-yearly review of the CIMA syllabus. And teachers are looking at me going, "What do you mean, last ever?" I said, well, we're going to review it as and when it's needed in future. It might be reviewed every 6 months. It might be reviewed every year. They said, "You can't do that." I said, "I can do that, and we will do that. Because we need to be teaching people relevant skills. We can't afford to have candidates coming out of the exams experts in the history of accounting. They need to be experts in current practice." And they're still going, "But you can't do that. What are we meant to do?" I said, well, you're going to have to change what you teach as quickly as we change what we test. You're going to need to move. But that's not how we work, they say. And you quickly find the teachers who are in the same position as the people who move their data from one system to another. They're not going to be relevant. And we're already seeing the impact of that on IT programs at universities, particularly in this country where we're seeing the advent of short programs not far away from here in Bangalore, which are prospering at the expense of the IT programs in universities, because they're up to date. Because IT knowledge changes so fast, you need it to be quick, you need it to be relevant. So, looking more broadly, this is our traditional accounting skill set for management accountants: technical skills, business acumen, managing people, and leading. How does that change? Well, the answer is it doesn't change, but it does change. It doesn't change because those things are still required. Where it does change, though, is quite profound, because those technical skills become things you no longer have to remember. Those are things that can be automated. You have to learn how to manage the robot. Business acumen, some of that can be automated. The people skills and the leadership skills, much, much less so, unless you're managing one of those 19-year-olds who wants to be managed by a robot. And what, of course, carves us out as different is that whole piece of objectivity, the ethics, the integrity, and the professionalism, which enable us to work as business partners and tell the business leader how it is, not tell the business leader how they want it to be, but be absolutely truthful and honest with them. So that is how our world is changing. We created from our research 4 reports around the changing role and mandate of finance, around technology, around the shape of the finance function, and around competences and mindsets for individuals. We presented this in these reports to probably one of the biggest banks in the world, headquartered in London. They took it and said, how much do we need to pay you to use this? And we said, well, nothing, because actually, your chairman's one of our members. He can get it for free from our website. So let's cut out the middleman. You can download it for free from our website as well. And they said, but PwC would have charged us over 100,000 for this. And we perhaps thought, missed an opportunity there. But we didn't, because we produced this stuff for the profession. These 4 reports are available for you at cgma.org. cgma.org/futurefinance. There is, in the words of a London bank, over £100,000 worth of free consultancy there. So please go and have a look at it, download it, take it to work, use it to make yourselves look good at work, but most importantly, use it to drive change in your finance function, use it to drive better businesses. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews, for sharing your views on the